Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia and across the globe.
Hi, this is David Grice and Troy Sincock. Yes, we're talking innovation for the next half hour, chatting to entrepreneurs and startups and finding out about their journey towards, getting the types of ideas that they really want to see happen off the ground.
And I really love hearing the story, the journey of them starting from nothing, or in some cases starting from a completely different field that they end up in, and just understanding how they've gone and created brilliant businesses out of it.
What we're discovering too is innovation is not always technology. Sometimes it's just about thinking, it's different processes, it's a unique perspective.
Yeah, and just hearing the challenges too that they're facing and how they've been able to overcome them to move into the future.
We've got a great show lined up for you today, and over the next few weeks we're going to be featuring some of the influential people coming to Adelaide as part of the Hybrid World Adelaide event in October. That's from the 4th to 8th of the Tonsley Innovation Precinct, and you can win a double pass. All you have to do is follow the In Show on Twitter and then retweet this week's podcast link.
This week we're joined by Janet Gaeta, one of the creative directors of Hybrid World, and we're also chatting with John Carroll, who's a director of prototyping at Sphero, who's created a toy for Star Wars that lets you be a Jedi Knight.
I cannot wait to hear about that one. Now, here's Claire with some innovation news, including a story about something that's very dear to my heart, whiskey. What have you got for us this week, Claire?
Thanks, guys. A 17-year-old CEO in Queensland is creating innovative holographic technology. Sheldon College student Scott Miller began his journey to success in Year 9 when he was given a simple business project. Scott and his group members were required to create a business plan for a product and make a pitch for a $100 investment. So he and his team successfully developed and sold hashtag keyrings, which is literally a keyring with a unique hashtag attached. Using the $2,000 profit from that successful business venture, they then developed the Holotrix hologram display, which is a centrepiece that can project holograms onto its own surface area when it's attached to a mobile phone. The device can project products, logos, moving graphics, or even real footage taken by the user by using an accompanying app. In Year 11, Scott launched a startup called BOP Industries with a bunch of his schoolmates. Now they're selling hundreds of products to markets worldwide, and they hope it will be used by schools, theatre companies and event managers. There's no telling what these young Australian entrepreneurs will do next. In London, the Royal Mail Postal Service has begun a year-long trial of electric vans. The UK Postal Service has partnered with car developer Arrival to launch 9 trucks to deliver packages and letters at the central London hub. The vans come in 3 various sizes and have a range of about 160 kilometres. The company has revealed that the vans don't produce emissions and will cost the same amount as diesel trucks to encourage the use of electric vehicles. During the preparation stages of the rollout, post offices were fitted with charging stations. Arrival is run by businessman Dennis Sverdlov, who also created the Yotta phone. Recently, a new factory opened in London and the company has made claims that its workforce of robots will produce 50,000 electric vehicles per year. The company also has plans to eventually make the vehicles autonomous with the help of artificial intelligence. Imagine if Australia Post chose to make the switch to electric vehicles. Scientists have finally proven that adding water to whiskey makes it taste better. Now you have scientific evidence to use during those lengthy debates over whether it should be consumed straight. According to research conducted by scientists in Sweden, the glycol and ethanol molecules found in whiskey stick together. When water is added, they don't stick. The researchers found that when water is added, the glycol molecules, which are responsible for the smoky taste and smell, rise to the top of the glass. This means that the flavour and smell will be stronger as it's sitting on top instead of being evenly distributed in the drink. The research also details that if the concentration of ethanol is high, like in cask-strength whiskies, water should be added to enhance the flavour. Other researchers are now calling for a taste test to find out exactly how much water is needed to make the perfect whiskey. At the end of the day, it's just personal preference to add water or not. What do you guys think?
Thanks very much, Claire. Well, David, you and I, we've been known to enjoy a drop of whiskey.
Just a few drops, but I'm actually really keen to give this a crack, if you don't mind. So
let's this time of the morning.
Well, why not?
Okay.
Let's have a crack. Oh, there we go. Well, as a whiskey lover, I still don't mind it. It's actually all right.
Yeah, look, before Claire gave us that story, I mean, I'd heard about people doing it, but I'd always been a bit hesitant myself, thinking that it wasn't, the authentic whiskey drinking experience. But isn't that extraordinary?
It is extraordinary, but when you think about it, a lot of whiskey drinkers drink on the rocks anyway. So, presumably the ice would melt slightly in the glass, and now we've got scientific proof that it's a good thing.
So does this mean we can actually drink more whiskey?
Yeah, why not?
It's David and Troy talking innovation on The In Show. You can check us out at theinshow.online, Facebook, and you can follow The In Show on Twitter and retweet this week's podcast link to win a double pass to Hybrid World Adelaide. Next, Janet Gaeta, one of the creative directors of Hybrid World, will chat to us about what we can expect at this year's event and how she's bringing the interactive world into the homes of Australian families.
Hi, I'm Susie Sosa from Verb, and you're with Troy and David on The In Show.
Adelaide is starting to be recognised as a smart city, nationally and globally. The City of Churches is rapidly gaining a reputation as the city for innovation. Smart city innovation is becoming a big part of our future. The Adelaide Smart City Studio is supporting people that are creating new smart city products and services for global markets. What we've taken for granted is now being embraced by residents and visitors alike. Adelaide Smart City Studio, creating opportunities.
It's David Grice and Troy Sincock on The In Show. And if you've missed an episode, just make sure you subscribe to The In Show podcast on iTunes. In the next 10 minutes, we'll talk to John Carroll, his director of prototyping at Sphero, about his robot that lets you be a Jedi Knight. Janet Gaeta has been instrumental in bringing the understanding of the interactive world into homes of countless Australians. She created ABC TV's program dedicated to video games, Good Game, and she'll lead the presentation of the public program for Hybrid World Adelaide next month. Janet, great to have you on The In Show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
Janet, I'm really curious about sort of what got you to be involved with Hybrid World.
Well, I don't know if you know, but Amanda Duffy, who is the CEO of Hybrid World and the Adelaide Film Festival, I used to work with Amanda at the ABC. So she was actually my boss all those years that I was working on Good Game. So she knew that I was completely in love with this world and interactive technology, and was a real, I consider myself a bit of an evangelist for what, video gaming can do, especially for young people. So when the state government came to her and said, we're really interested in having a broadening of the Adelaide Film Festival into, more screen-based entertainment and interactive technologies, she rang me and said, have you got any ideas? If you had a festival, what would you do? I gave her a few ideas, and then she said, would you like to come and do it? And I'm like, oh, yes, this is like a dream come true for me.
So have you always sort of had a passion for tech and gaming and so forth, or is that something that sort of developed through your career? Or
No, it's been there from the minute I could get my hands on technology. So I am a woman of a certain age. I'm over 50, I'll just say that. But I have been video gaming since I was a teenager. And so I go right back to the very, very early days of video games, really.
Space Invaders and all that?
I guess Space Invaders on arcade machines, but the very first handheld consoles was a Nintendo one, for me anyway, and it was called the Game & Watch. It just had one game on it. The particular game that I was pretty much obsessed with was called Parachute. Some of your listeners will remember that. It was a top little game, and that really began my love affair with games, and I've never stopped, really.
Isn't that amazing how some of those, handheld devices now has transferred to, the way that we use our phone now, and it really they touched on that sort of mobile aspect of technology many years ago, and then it seemed to then move into the lounge room somehow, and then it's come back the other way.
It has, and I think that is the fascinating story behind games. The creativity and the technology are intertwined and go hand in hand. So I personally believe that video game developers are some of the most creative people working on the planet. They are sort of, limited, and then their world is expanded by the great advances in technology. And when you think about something like the rise of, say, the CD, and what that meant for video games, that amount of storage that could now be fitted on one little, bit of plastic which went into your home console, what that did for video games. They went from being, sort of a relatively 2D experience of, say, 30 hours to 100 hours and full 3D and these immersive worlds, and that is the story of video gaming. And now, it's all about interactive games and games that we play online. So, it's very early stages still. It's so exciting, that whole world, and that has what's kept me enthralled in it all these years, and I don't think I'll ever stop.
So what's your favourite game right now?
At the moment, well, I call myself a bit of a numpty. So I don't have a great compulsion to play the latest game. I am very happy playing the games that I love, and I like to put a lot of hours into them. So I currently am playing a wonderful city builder game called City Skylines, where, I'm the mayor of a city. It's a little bit like running Hybrid World, really. I build things, people come. It's really, I'm very efficient with my traffic design and my roundabout design. And, that's kind of my relaxation time. I disappear into City Skylines and become the mayor for a couple of hours.
So how many hours on average every week would you be spending on your games?
Not enough.
It sounds like it. So tell us what's in store for Hybrid World.
Gosh, well, there is so much in store for Hybrid World. I mean, really, it's been such a joy. I've been able to bring together all of my great loves. So there's a lot about music production, innovation in music distribution, a lot about gaming. We're building this enormous, what's called a local area network, where we're going to have 50 networked computers where people are going to be able to come and play together, including a world first involving a game called League of Legends, where they're coming, and we're holding a couple of high school days where they have spent a lot of time developing a responsible behaviour online program, which I think is really brilliant. And we're going to be bringing that to the schools of South Australia and inviting those kids to participate in that program out to Hybrid World. We've got lots about film production. We've got some podcasting. We've got loads of coding, lots of drone flying. I really wanted to have something out there for absolutely everybody who is interested in the tech space, whether you're 5 years old or whether you're 65 years old.
So you've got programs around for families as well as a conference sort of program. What can people expect from a family perspective? How are families going to be able to be engaged in the event?
So over the 4 days, I'm looking after the public side of it, which is very much orientated towards families. So I highly encourage people to get on the website and have a look. There are, I think we've probably got around 30 different activities for people to choose from. Everything from coding to learning to be a drone flyer. There's some tips for, being funny online, all of this kind of whole plethora of stuff. Most of it is free. Most of it you do have to register for. So I hope that I see lots of families coming out there together. Maybe mum and dad want to go and learn to fly a drone. The daughter's in a coding class, and the other daughter is in robotics, learning how to program and build robots. It's the first time that anything like this has been held in Australia. And I think, I'm really hoping that people come and have their eyes widen, their brains expanded, and enjoy themselves.
Sounds super exciting, Janet. Thanks so much for joining us on the In Show. We look very much forward to Hybrid World Adelaide.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what the people think of it. Thank you so much, guys.
That's Janet Gaeta, who'll be leading the presentation of the public program for Hybrid World Adelaide next month. And you can follow the In Show on Twitter and retweet this week's podcast link, because you could win a double pass to Hybrid World Adelaide, a new 5-day event exploring how the digital and real worlds are intertwined at the Tonsley Innovation Precinct. Next, we're going to use the force. Sphero's John Carroll will be in the studio to talk about his work for Disney and Star Wars.
Hi, I'm Martin Hazy, Lord Mayor of Adelaide, and you're listening to The In Show.
John Carroll's the Director of Prototyping at Sphero. He's an app developer, general problem solver, and he was here for the opening of the new headquarters of Techstars Adelaide. John, thanks for joining us.
Hey, it's good to be here, guys.
John, tell me, what were you doing before Sphero?
So I'd been building apps for about 3 years before Sphero. I had some of the first apps that were available in the App Store. I built a whole ton of apps that were really cool. Most of them you've probably never heard of. The one you probably have heard of was called iFart. It was the #1 selling app in December 2008, right after the App Store first opened.
Fantastic. What was it like being at the ground floor of all that activity?
It was a lot of fun. It was really different back then because you could put out an app and not put a ton of marketing or money behind it, and it could get noticed and kind of picked up. And now with however many millions of apps are out on the App Store now, there's a ton. It's harder to get noticed. People don't. You can't just get your app picked up unless you have a nice marketing budget or get really lucky and lightning strikes. It's hard to get out there.
So how did you end up in Sphero?
So some of the guys at Sphero were looking for an app developer. They had like a robot ball and they wanted someone to build apps. And they looked at my profile on LinkedIn actually, and they saw that I made iFart, and they're like, "You don't seem like a very serious guy. You seem pretty fun. Do you want to come make apps for robot balls?" At the time I was freelancing, kind of looking for a job, and I no hesitation. I said, "Absolutely, I'll come down to the office tomorrow and meet you guys." And I met them, and the sparks flew, and it was a good matchup.
So Sphero didn't actually start with a robotic ball, did it? When you first went through the very first Techstars Accelerator program, you had something vastly different to that.
Yeah, so the original concept was to make connected light switches, light bulbs, control your garage door opener with your phone, which now you're like, oh, that tons of people are doing it. This was in 2010, and at the time, with Bluetooth Classic and not having Bluetooth Low Energy on phones, it didn't make as much sense to do that back then. So we kind of rethought what we wanted to make, and there were a couple different ideas outside of that they had, and we don't even remember what they were because we started making robot balls and really never looked back.
That must just have been an extraordinary feeling at the time, because you're almost like sort of reliving your childhood. You get to make the stuff that you probably loved as a kid.
Yeah, I tell people I have the most fun job in the world, and it's probably the most fun job I'll ever have, just making toys. And I was just over at the Apple Store, watching some kids learn how to code with our products, and just seeing the smiles on their faces and the fun they have when they use our product, is what gets me out of bed in the morning.
And one of the things that Sphero is it's actually about teaching them how to code as opposed to just something that's a toy.
Yeah, so we started out with the Open API SDK. We wanted everyone to program it. And that was really good for the guys who wanted to stay up till 3 a.m. and drink Red Bull and, hack around on it. But at one point I built a tool, and I actually made it for our CEO so that he could kind of program the robot to do certain behaviors so that he would bother me less about, programming it to do behaviors. And he came running into the office and was like, "Well, this is awesome. Look at all the stuff I've made for it." And at some point we invited some kids in on a Saturday to try to have them learn to code with it. At the end of the day, they were crying because they didn't want to leave. They thought they were playing with a toy the whole time, and they were actually learning some really valuable computer science concepts. It's
incredible when you think about how a child does learn, and that engagement and that sense of play when they're learning things is to be able to put that into a way that they can learn to code, like that's was that a sort of like a planned thing that your heart and soul behind it was actually to teach kids to code?
So we had a concept of openness and letting people program and code with it. Our original pitch was never for it to get as big, in education as it has. It was sort of a happy accident that, kids, I think it was like 5 to 7 year olds that we were just over at the Apple Store teaching are able to use it and pick it up and program it. And it's been really amazing that it's kind of gotten the penetration that it has.
It's funny because when you talk about it as a toy, it feels very advanced to me in comparison to most things I might get from Target or Kmart or that kind of thing. Can you talk us through exactly what BB-8 does?
So BB-8 drives around, just like all of our robot balls. It's got a magnetic head on it. Through the app, you can look at it, and in augmented reality, we project a hologram. So BB-8 has a holographic projector in his head, just like R2 does, with the famous Princess Leia, help me Obi-Wan, hologram that she plays. And I was actually sitting around one day, and I was like, we could use our old AR technology to have him project a hologram out of his head. And so you look at it, and you can play back a holographic message. In addition, he can kind of patrol your house, make noises. You can program him with our Sphero EDU app, which is a programming suite. You can do block space programming or JavaScript programming, as well as we have a Swift Playground that you can program the robots with.
Cool. And so BB-8 was created for what purpose?
So we created him to make a droid from a Star Wars movie, basically.
That's where I was trying to go.
We were kind of shown him early on. Disney showed it to us, and like, do you think you could actually make this? And we said absolutely. We went off and built it, and they gave us a license to make the toy that you see on shelves today.
Amazing, and obviously the robot that you built was in the movie as well.
So the ones in the movie are all puppets, actually. If you watch the behind the scenes on the DVDs, there's a guy in a green suit with some,
wow,
wands kind of moving different parts around. They say J.J. Abrams really wanted a physical thing to be in the shots for the actors to kind of interact with, so that they weren't talking to empty space.
There'd be a lot of people aspiring to work with the brands that you're working with right now. Have you sort of felt the enormity of that when you've been in the moment, or is it only really when you talk about it now that you go, oh, this is just my thing? Or were you always aspiring to work with the big brands?
No, we weren't. We just kind of stumbled upon it accidentally, and now all the other big brands that you can imagine are willing to work with us. It's opened a lot of doors for us.
Mm. So you'd have a lot of influence in the area. Do you feel like now you really just get to... It's almost like you get to live completely freely. You've got access to this thing that people want, and you get to drive it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're kind of setting our own destiny at this point. We were a small startup that had a pretty decent business going. We were growing at a decent pace, and BB-8 kind of propelled us to the next level a lot faster than we ever thought we'd get there.
We often, with some of the technology that's coming out, it's amazing how it seems to get connected to, cartoons or TV shows or movies from the past. To what degree do you think that actually informs things? Because I suppose, when we were watching those films back in the day, it's like, oh, that's never going to happen. Or if it does, it's going to be way off into the future. And now it feels like those ideas that were created years and years ago are becoming sort of very relevant right now.
Yeah, I think more and more technologies from those movies you're going to see. We had someone come by our office who's apparently a startup out of Adelaide who has a little holographic box you look into, and they were playing the Princess Leia hologram for us in a hologram form.
So last week Sphero announced some new products that you've launched now, and what can you tell us about those?
So 2 new products. One of them is a droid you've known for a long time. Another one is a brand new droid you've never seen before. So the first one is the Sphero R2-D2.
Awesome.
So we feel like we've really done R2-D2 justice here. He has a fully retractable third leg, the body shifts, and the robot can waddle. And the amount of effort we've put into kind of bringing him to life through the animations that he does is just amazing. It feels like he's standing right there in front of you. He's to scale to the BB-8, so when you set them next to each other, they look like they should next to each other.
Fantastic. And the second one?
So the second one is BB-9E. It is the first order Imperial droid that's really named that we're going to see.
Right.
So if you imagine him, he looks like a black version of BB-8 with more of a kind of square, flat head. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing that we've been able to do with him is put LEDs in the head. So he has a glowing red eye and a blue little dot next to it. And we're able to power that wirelessly without any extra batteries kind of through the shell, which seems really easy, but it was actually a pretty tough challenge for us to solve.
Absolutely. So I'm really curious, does your mind ever stop? Like, you're in this amazing creative space that you're able to do all these incredible things. Do you just sort of get any time to, or can you, switch off at any point?
I can. I go home from work and I try not to think about work, but I always do, which is great. I have a great job where, I don't feel the need to kind of pursue things outside of work.
It's one of those things when when you're passionate and you love what you do, it is very, very difficult to switch off. And one of the things we've been talking about on the show is things around mental health for entrepreneurs and people that are in this. And have you got anything you can sort of share with people as to the importance of just making sure you look after yourself?
So it's super important to make time for yourself. And I always tell my team, and I've had some fairly unhealthy work-life balance issues in the past where I was working way too much, didn't have much of a personal life, relationships struggled because of it. But kind of going through that, I've learned that, making time for myself, taking time off on the weekends is way more important than getting more products out faster or getting things out on time. And when people want to, need to go spend time with their families, it's never like, go be at your kid's birthday, go be at their soccer game. Don't be here. This is not as important as your family is.
Mm. Well, John, it's incredibly exciting what you're up to. Congratulations what you've achieved thus far, and it feels like there's plenty more ahead too. We're going to be hearing a lot more about Sphero and discovering all kinds of droids in the future as well. Thanks so much for joining us on The In Show.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
It's all about innovation on The In Show. If you've got an event you'd like us to highlight, drop us a line at theinshow.online, and you can check us out on Facebook and Twitter. And download the Phoner app before you head out to your next event. Find people easier and market yourself better using station sponsor Phoner. That's PFONR, available on the App Store right now.
Now, before we go, here's Sam Davies, Director of Boutique Website and App Designers Digital Noir, talking about what's in for him right now.
One thing I've been thinking about a lot is sort of the Internet of Things and moving forward, how we've got this sort of integration of the Internet into everything in our lives. One thing we've talked about a lot in the studio is voice. It's interesting being on the radio talking about this, but how voice control and even just things like podcasts and the radio is becoming sort of much bigger part of our lives. We started thinking about how, so if you, I don't know if you've seen the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix, so if, falls in love with an operating system essentially, but have that idea of having something in your ear which we can talk to. And even now I wake up in the morning and talk to a robot next to my bed to ask what's, on my calendar for the day. Hi, Alexa, what's on the calendar? But thinking forward, if we're controlling lots of things in our lives, just with our voice, how does that change the shape of things like websites and apps? Because they're so visual at the moment and everything's controlled visually. I think if you said, I need to find a web designer in Adelaide audibly now, most websites aren't going to be able to return that. So thinking about how voice is going to control our lives in the next sort of 5-10 years is pretty interesting. Obviously, there's sort of an AI part of it where how clever the voice is and sort of gauging what you're saying and what your next sort of step's going to be in the process. But I think websites are soon going to need to have a very clear pathway for someone that is browsing verbally.
Next week on The In Show.
We hear from Kristen Alford, Director of Mod, about what's on offer at Hybrid World Adelaide. And we're joined by Robin Freeth, Licensee and Director of TEDx Adelaide, a non-profit organisation devoted to ideas worth spreading.
As usual, Claire will be bringing us those interesting and sometimes unusual stories from around the world. And make sure you check out theinshow.online. You can subscribe to iTunes and listen to the podcast, find out more about this week's guests, share an innovation you're working on, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, that wraps up another great show on The In Show this week. We'll catch you next Monday for some more innovation on The In Show.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.